Welcome back to the channel, everybody. In today's video, I'm going to be discussing David Jiricek. This defenseman was just drafted 6th overall in 2022. At the time, Columbus was lucky to draft Jiricek at that spot because they got Chicago's first-round pick in the Seth Jones trade. Once upon a time, this looked like a potential robbery for the Blue Jackets. However, 2 years down the road, and now it's starting to look like a trade that may fall apart. This season, Jiricek has been healthy scratched 10 times already. He has only played in 5 games and has just 1 assist. He hasn't been getting a whole lot of ice time either when he has played. Outside of 1 game with 17 minutes, the Blue Jackets haven't been handling Jiricek in an ideal way whatsoever. As a Blue Jackets fan, I am beyond worried. It seems as if the organization is already treating him like he is their 7th pairing defenseman, and he isn't even 21 years old yet. For a player who kissed his jersey logo when he was drafted, it is pretty tragic to see his franchise treat him with such disrespect. Right after he was drafted, Jiricek immediately headed over to North America. Things were going pretty well around this time. It seemed pretty evident that an entire season in the AHL would be beneficial. During this time, Columbus had Brad Larson as their head coach. He was a total bonehead and was very chaotic with handling the youth in the system. Jiricek's reckless development path began around the beginning of the 2022-23 season. Columbus began that campaign overseas with a 2-game series against the Colorado Avalanche. It was Brad Larson's brilliant idea to have him travel all the way to Europe just to end up healthy scratching him in both games. That was pretty dumb of him, and it led to Jiricek not having the smoothest start to the season. It was around this time when I believe the organization created some damage with Jiricek. The Blue Jackets eventually returned home, and Larson continued to treat Jiricek like he was a 7th pairing D, when in reality he was just some 18-year-old kid who needed to be playing as much as possible at that time. I couldn't find a healthy scratcher tracker, but for what I remember, Larson did have Jiricek sit out for a bunch of games until he finally did send him down to the Cleveland Monsters. At that point, Jiricek did thrive and go on to do historical things in the AHL as a 19-year-old defenseman. It was a bumpy start to his season, but by the end of it, Jiricek looked like a stellar pick. He displayed that he could be an effective quarterback on the power play and produce some big numbers. Jiricek can be physical and has a big frame. He comes with some pretty good defensive upside as well. His weaknesses have always been his skating and overall speed. It's something that to this day still really needs to improve, but he still has plenty of time to grow. Unfortunately, his 23-24 campaign would prove to be more frustrating rather than beneficial. Though Jiricek did appear in 43 NHL games last year while registering 10 points, I thought Pascal Vincent's coaching techniques were so bad that Jiricek would have been better off in Cleveland full-time to avoid the mess that was happening in Columbus. He did play 29 games with Cleveland that season, but it was a very bumpy road for him that year. He looked amazing in the AHL once again, but his time in Columbus rubbed him the wrong way, I would imagine. He was getting healthy scratched a bunch again, his ice time was inconsistent, he didn't get many minutes on the special teams, and overall it looked like Jiricek wasn't put in a position to succeed in the NHL last year. The Blue Jackets brought in Don Waddell and Dean Evison to become the new general manager and head coach this past summer. I really thought those two would have evaluated the whole system and focused on making sure that the organization's top prospect would be put down a beneficial path to help him reach his full potential and ceiling. But instead, it has been this mess where now the organization is seemingly giving up on him. Hindsight is 20/20, of course, but could you imagine how much better off Jiricek would be right now if he played 2 full seasons in Cleveland instead of having clueless coaches messing with his development path? Given his age, you could even justify that to this day, Columbus should still be leaving him alone in Cleveland to get high-end ice time and to iron out his flaws. It's comical how easily avoidable this whole mess could have been too. It is definitely hard to build up an elite NHL franchise, but it should be seen as easy when it comes to properly developing prospects. As long as if you give them appropriate ice time and the proper environment, then they will continue to grow. I just don't understand how an organization can waste a draft pick like this. When you're a rebuilder, a top draft pick should be handled very seriously and they should be treated delicately. If you draft somebody 6th overall, then you better make sure you do a damn good job at not messing anything up with their development path. If you want to transition from being mid to becoming a contender, then you gotta make sure you develop your top prospects properly. If you don't, then you can end up in a long, miserable mess. What makes this matter even worse is that what Columbus needs more than anything is a high-end right-handed defenseman. Well, Jiricek literally has the potential to grow into what the organization desperately needs, but instead they're just playing stupid. There hasn't been anything announced, but I deep down believe that the relationship between the two is damaged beyond repair. I can see that Jiricek is playing with a lot of stress and with a lack of freedom. I mean, his blue line consists of Jack Johnson, Ivan Provorov, Damon Severson, and Jay Christensen. For the majority of his games, he has played with Jack Johnson. On most nights, he is scratched because Johnson is in the lineup over him. I just feel like Columbus is doing everything in their power to make sure he fails. Recently, Columbus claimed Fabro, a right-handed defenseman, off of waivers in his first game with Columbus, and boom, he's on the top pair. It's like they're saying to him that they're willing to experiment with anything and anybody but him. It sucks too because Jiricek has done amazing things in the AHL. Usually after you perform well in the A and earn a call-up, then you're given a legit opportunity in the NHL. That hasn't happened though. For so many games in his young career, he's been placed on the bottom pair, which isn't a very ideal place for him. If the intention is to keep him there, then just have him play in Cleveland instead. It's been very questionable how this organization has been treating this prospect. What a complete disgrace from the Blue Jackets, but at the end of the day, it can't be seen as that surprising, seeing as they're the least successful team in NHL history. Anyways, if this continues, I would imagine David Jiricek will request a trade soon, and rightfully so he should. I hope this situation is resolved soon and that he gets sent down to Cleveland right away, but you never know what is next. What do you guys think about the situation? What should the Blue Jackets do about this? If Jiricek does get traded soon, then what do you think the deal could possibly look like? That's all for now, everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. Hit that subscribe button if you're new and like it up, and I'll see you all next time.